Hey sixth graders, I'm sorry that I'm out of the building today, but I did just want to make sure you guys were aware of how to work on the effects of an outlier sheet and how to get through the Mario's Dilemma assignment. So first off, we've kind of talked about an outlier, but that's our main vocabulary word for today. And when I think of the word outlier, a word that helps me remember its meaning is outsider, right? And so an outlier is just a piece of data that is different than the rest of your data. It's either going to be dramatically larger than the rest of your data or dramatically smaller. So when you're looking at your data, right, it's just a piece of data that doesn't quite fit. Imagine if you've been getting a lot of 80s and 90s on your test, and then all of a sudden you get a 30, right? That 30 would be an outlier in your data. It can also work in the opposite way. If you've been getting a lot of 50s and 60s and then all of a sudden you make a 100, well, that 100 would be an outlier in your data. So the question we're trying to answer today is, how does an outlier affect our three measures of center? So this first data set that we have, I'm going to take a second to put it in order. So I'm going to start with the 12, 13, 3 15s, and then a 50. So our first job is to identify the outlier. And of course, the outlier in this situation is 50. So, we've been working with trick-or-treating and candy for a lot of our examples. So imagine that you and your friends go out trick-or-treating and you have a lot of friends who are bringing in candy in the teens, right? The low teens. And then all of a sudden you have a friend that brings in 50 pieces of candy. And so the question is, how is that going to affect our data, right? Or our measures of center, especially because that 50 is an outlier. It is dramatically larger than the rest of our data. So the first column that I'm going to work with is the with the outlier column, because I'm leaving that 50 in, it's already written. And I'm just going to find my three measures of center. So for the first one, the mean, I'm going to go ahead and add up all these numbers. And let's see what we get. So I have 12 plus 13 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 50. I'm going to divide it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I get 20. So right now, if we were to all share our candy evenly, because we know the mean or the average is also called the fair share, we would each be getting 20 pieces of candy. Now that is interesting, considering that majority of the people did not even bring an amount that was at least 20, right? So the question is, how in the world are we each going to get 20 pieces of candy? And it's because of that outlier, right? We have a person or a friend who's carrying a lot more of the load or the weight, right? They were able to contribute 50 pieces of candy. Therefore, we were each able to get 20 back. Okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and find the median. My data's already in order. Okay. Because I have an even number of data, there's definitely 2 in the middle, and they do happen to both be 15, but I want to point out that it's neither one of those 15s in the middle. It's a separate 15, because we want to remember this first 15 is a part of our data that's to the left, 1, 2, 3 data pieces to the left, and the second one is a part of our data that's to the right, 1, 2, 3 data pieces to the right, to ensure that we have the same amount on both sides, right? There is no number in between 15 and 15, that's why the median is still 15. But if you add them together, 15 plus 15 is 30, divided by 2 still gives you 15. So our median is 15. And then our mode, or our number that repeats the most, is also 15, because 15 repeated 3 times. Alright, so now we're going to go through and do this same thing, but we're going to do it without the outlier. Meaning when I write my data, I'm not going to include the 50. So imagine that friend that had 50 pieces of candy shows up, realizes that you guys all have numbers in the teens and says, there's no way I'm sharing my candy with you, right? And walks away. So they're not a part of our data set. The question is, which measures of center do you think are going to change, right? The one that I definitely think might change is our mean, the average, or the fair share, because we know they're all the same. So there's no way that we can all still get 20 pieces of candy if that person isn't contributing their 50, especially because the highest number we have right now is 15. So I'm going to take a second to see what my new mean is. So we have 12 plus 13 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15. And then I'm going to divide it by, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of data. And I get 14. So instead of us all getting 20 pieces of candy, we're actually now only going to get 14. So the question is, what is this outlier of 50 doing to the mean? If the 50 is not there, the mean is 14. With the 50, the mean goes up to 20. So this outlier caused our mean or average to increase. And that's just because the outlier is dramatically larger than the rest of the data. Similar to if you have a lot of 60s in the grade book and then all of a sudden you make a 100. That 100 is an outlier, but because it's a lot higher than the rest of your scores, it's going to cause your grade to go up. Okay? Alright, let's see if we can find the median. It's a little easier now that we only have 5. It looks like the median is still 15, so there was no effect. And our mode is also still 15. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that the outlier can never affect the mode. The mode is the number that occurs the most, right, most frequently, which wouldn't be your outlier. So whether that 50 is or is not in the data, it's not going to change the fact that you have 3 15s, right? That 15 is showing up more than any other number, okay? So for the rest of class today, you will work on this bottom piece right here. You'll complete it on your own. You'll then answer the reflection questions and start making your way through the assignments listed on my eClass post. So you'll start with Mario's Dilemma. You'll fill that in. Then you can work on the mean, median, mode, and range mystery picture, or not mystery picture, color by number, digital color by number. And then if you finish that, then there's actually the rest of this effects of an outlier sheet that you can work on. Oh, don't forget that your quiz is tomorrow.